Good afternoon and welcome to our World Hour of Power show here with Lady Pauline and my co-host, Mr. Glenn Greenwich, the Honorable Mayor of Southern Boulevard here in Queens. Glenn, you have three gentlemen that's your guests today. Could you announce them and say where they're from?
Absolutely, absolutely. So these three gentlemen I'm going to introduce are all doing work on fatherhood in various aspects. Um, Bill Davis is coming in from the Father Center in Trenton, and we've got Charles Robinson, who is in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and he's doing some mediation work with the young men, and actually organized the conversation for a workshop that's going to be happening on May 22nd. And Dr. Byron Johns is doing some fantastic work out in LA and around fatherhood, and he's actually got a seminar that's a workshop that he's doing this Wednesday coming up, and we'll show a flyer on that so that people can get a sense of it. But these gentlemen are here to have a conversation about parenting, the dual parenting. How can we get our black men back in the conversation of parenting for those who have been out of the loop, and for men who want to do better parenting with their children. So, that's really the conversation that we're set up. So I'm going to give it back to you because I know you've got some questions.
Yes, I do. I've always announced that I've been a social worker for over 25 years. And my first humble beginnings was working in the group home with adolescents. And it was an eye opener. Let's put it like that. It was a great eye opener. I had a pretty good childhood. And when I was working with the less advantaged, um, a lot of the young ladies did not have fathers in their home, or they had fathers that abused them, you know, brothers that abused them. Um, so it was a combination of a lot of stuff. And then they got pregnant with children, and it was another compound of no child support and no man around. How can we break this cycle?
Bill, why don't you talk a little bit about the trauma and some of the things that you've experienced?
Okay, so at our organization, we interview our men and we find out just what the barriers are to them becoming successful or becoming better parents. And we started to realize that most of our men suffer from trauma. So we did a study. We became trauma informed, and we learned the significance of the ACEs movement, which is adverse childhood experiences, and that if you had more than three or four adverse childhood experiences, it would affect you in your later life. And so there's a questionnaire called the Ace Questionnaire that was developed. I forget the name of the organization that first developed it, but they um, they created this questionnaire of 10 questions, and we hired a statistician, and I did some studies on it. And to make the story short, we found that most of our men had compound adverse experiences. In fact, most of the men scored eights and nines on the survey, which told us that in our community, trauma was playing a big deal. So we made an effort to start uh, trying to approach our services from a trauma lens, from a trauma informed care lens. And so, because if you've been traumatized in life, it's kind of hard because it's going to touch all aspects. It's going to touch your ability to work, your ability to father, your ability to socialize, to interact with other people. And so this compounded with the mass incarceration in the United States, which is one of the main traumatizing factors. We also found in our study that 90% of the men that came to us for help had been involved in the criminal justice system. So we looked at all these things from a traumatic sort of approach, and before we uh, provide our services, we first try to address the trauma in the men's lives. And so there's so many different negative impact things impacting our men. You have to you have to have a plan for uh, a systems approach, but you also have to take each person individually to find out what has happened in their childhood. So the question we ask is not what's wrong with you. That's not the question in the trauma informed world. The question is what happened to you. And so once you find that out, there are ways to treat trauma that are separate and apart from the normal behavioral mental health um, system or the medical system or there's a different names for it, but the whole psychiatric system, there's a separate way of treatment for trauma-informed care and treatment that can mitigate the effects of trauma. So that's one aspect of what we're doing right now.
It's very
So
interesting.
trauma is I mean not just in the Black community, but in all communities. But it has a the effect is multiplied in our community.
Okay, because I know that other cultures have a lot of trauma. I mean,
Mm.
but it seems that the minorities is really compounded with incarceration, substance abuse, and those aspects. When you have children, creates another compound of problems. So it's like you start off with one and now you wind up with 10 problems from that one issue of either the substance abuse, the incarceration, or just the fact of a poor environment.
Yeah, the compound trauma is absolutely correct, and we start out as Black people with what they call intergenerational trauma.
Yeah.
So the trauma actually affects your DNA. When I was in school, I was taught that um, acquired experiences were not hereditary. You couldn't pass them on to the next generation. The science has proven that to be incorrect. So that the trauma that we experience, uh, from when slaves were first brought over here, the middle crossing, the plantations, the trauma of racism, all that is passed on unknowingly in our genes. And so this is not theory now, this is practical science. So we start out uh, with a handicap.
I,
The white race is on third base, and we're still at the plate when
I
we're
agree.
starting.
I agree with you 100%.
Charles, what's happening out in Minneapolis? What's your take on this conversation? And then we want to hear from Dr. Jones.
Well, actually, I'm in Milwaukee,
Sorry, I keep calling
Milwaukee,
Minnesota,
Wisconsin,
Milwaukee. Sorry.
which
Yes.
Mhm.
which leads the country in most of all of the disparities, whether it's educational, income gap, um, infant mortality, incarceration. The zip code that I grew up in Milwaukee, 53206, is known infamously as the most incarcerated zip code in America. And so all of the unintended consequences of incarceration has an impact on our lives, on our families, on our communities. And I have about close to 35 years of experience as a mediator. And I did a lot of work in family court. And so what I'm noticing is that uh, Black people don't like to go down to the courthouse very much. It's not a very friendly place for us, especially Black men. And so when it comes to child placement, custody, and things like that, those issues go unresolved. And once they go unresolved, out of sight, out of mind, and then you have all the other barriers and circumstances that Bill mentioned earlier. So now that I'm getting toward the end of my career, I'm semi-retired, and I was wondering, the last several years of my career, what would I do? What lane could I run in that could have the most positive effect for our community? And so what I noticed was that what was missing was parenting was missing. Like there's a census report that shows, I think it was 2010, that in the Black family in Wisconsin, only 7% of children in the teenage category actually live with both biological parents. 7%. That's the lowest in the country. And so you can imagine, how the ramifications of that statistic. And like in Nebraska, the highest is in Nebraska, 26%, which is pretty low. And so you have to imagine that if these children are getting parenting outside of the normal marriage situation, they must be getting parenting through co-parenting, right? And if co-parenting doesn't exist, then that's what we can create. And I say that we can actually bring those services to the community. We don't have to have the courts handle that. And so that's why, I've been working in this area of fatherhood presence. And I have a website on fatherhood presence. And I was a co-parent myself.
Okay.
And my daughter is thriving right now because, and she's always acknowledging me for being involved in her life. But
There's something
go
I
ahead.
want to mention. Um, I do believe in that, but I also believe totally there has been a breakdown on family structure. I just don't put everything at the foot of the man. I also put it at the foot of women as well. We have changed the way we are as women, and that has created another problem um, for the family. We used to be in the household. We used to be mothers at home, and if we weren't at home, then there was grandma or your auntie or somebody that helped raise you. You know, but now auntie and grandma is out working, so the
Yes, we're
children,
so fragmented.
yes,
We don't have the extended family approach to families anymore. And notice that historically the Black family has been struggling, as long as we've been in America. And if you trace it back to Africa, it was a communal. Families were more community oriented. It's like even if you had like a community parenting was the thing. You just didn't have mother and father parenting, but you had the whole community parenting, all the children in the village.
that's true, and that's really what is missing. That's a big part of of the problem in today's society. You
And
know.
that's exactly what this group is trying to pull together, because we're not just focusing on the mother and the father, but now we're looking at bringing in anyone who supports family, whether it's traditional or non-traditional. And a study shows that non-traditional dads, once they are integrally involved in their children's lives, it's a win-win-win situation all the way around, because they have a breakthrough in their growth and development as well once they become integrally involved with their children.
Okay.
So
Uh,
we get a bad rap.
yeah, you
Mhm.
do. Yes, you do. At this point, I want to take a commercial break, and we'll be back after the commercial.
We'll be right back. But first, are you a small business owner looking for solutions? TMI and Partners is a business solution company offering operational, branding, and financial solution. For only $9.99 a month, your company will be assigned a personal business advisor. Well, that's right, only $9.99 per month, no contract, and you're on your way. Call TMI at 347-234-5304. That's 347-234-5304. Or visit their website at tmium.com. Tomorrow, the world will know your business. Is that it, guys? Hello? Did I do good?
Hi, this is attorney Stephen G. James. We've been practicing law at this law firm for over 30 years. I'm a former assistant prosecutor in Kings County and currently a defense attorney to serve you better. We work harder to serve you better. So just call us for the lawyers you can trust. 646-905-9000. 646-905-7001. We're located on Sutphin Boulevard, right near Hillside here in Jamaica, Queens, New York. For over 30 years serving the community. The law firm of Stephen G. James. Thank you.
Well, we're back. Let's continue this
Yeah.
lovely conversation. Go ahead, Glenn.
So I actually want to get to Mr. Dr. Byron Johns. You're out on the West Coast, and
Yes.
it sounds like we're having similar conversations all over the country. So give us a little perspective of what you're working on out in LA.
Well, I think in LA, we're very challenged with men being involved. So male engagement is a big deal. I used to have a Project Fatherhood group. Project Fatherhood is something that is across the county, where it's like a support group. And men can come and have dialogue. You get training to be a facilitator for about a week, and then you can launch your groups. So I did that for a while and was getting twosies and threesies, and it just seemed like a lot of effort and not the result. But in LA, for example, I work on a community project, and it seems like it's the female project. It's dealing with children. It's called Best Start, and it's about all children being kindergarten ready, but engaging the men in some of the conversation and activities has been a challenge. The other thing you mentioned about the men, there was a conversation you said earlier about women. That's what I wanted to talk about for a minute. Women changing and women going into the work world, I do think makes a huge difference. Because they are making their own money, and they're not as dependent on the man. And some of them don't even want to be bothered with men who are not at their level financially, and also because our culture seems to be promoting women, Black women now, it's like the men, we get he ain't this or he ain't that. And if she makes more money than you, I think there's a lot of ideas in women's heads that have been put out by the media and marketing and all of that about who they need to be and what makes them. And so it causes, I think we both need some work in relationship. How do you have a healthy, there's a program called Healthy Relationships. And I think we need more of that because we both come to the relationship with all of our trauma and all of our issues. And then we just trigger each other, escalate, and deal with social emotional work. I've done a lot of conflict resolution, and it's now social emotional intelligence. And I think we need a lot more of that. We are evolving, but also one thing that has impacted the family, I think greatly, or is impacting the family, is moving around. People are moving. They no longer live in communities together. I grew up in a community where everybody knew each other. Now the community is kind of devastated because other people are moving in and they're bringing their issues. There's more of that stuff there in Philly. But I do think that the issues are very, very complex. And in California, one other thing that adds to the complexity is gangs. And the community that I work in was highly devastated by gang activity and still is. The young people get recruited, the young men who aren't getting support from their families. There's a lot of neglect. And I think that's out of parents being young, but being neglected. And then this gang offers you a place to belong, maybe some money and some support and those kinds of things. They're in this community I live in. They had something that was called 100 Days and Nights of Shootings, and so you can imagine the trauma there. Plus, it's under-resourced, and I just hope, given the conversations we're having, that we honor that there's been a lot, and a lot of it's coming to the surface now with the Black Lives Matter and anti-racist stuff of what has been done to us as a people. And it's almost like every day we learn about different situations that occurred to us. And Bill talked about the welfare system, and we know that there was a time when the men, if they were in the household, then the women weren't going to get the welfare. So it was a deliberate effort to keep us separate, and I heard a statistic, and Bill and Charles might know better, that Black men are more involved in their children's lives than other races. That's something that and Bill, maybe y'all can speak to the literature about that, the actuality of that, but that's not what we hear, and there's so much demonizing of the Black male. You should be scared of him. He ain't all that. He ain't nothing. He ain't got a pot to piss in, that kind of stuff. And I think the issues are just so complex, but I do think with the women and the men, if we could just get more social emotional work done, I think it would make a huge difference.
Doctor, I truly agree upon what you said. It is truly accurate because I'm from a certain generation, and I do remember hearing other women. Sometimes they did have the boyfriend or the husband in the house, but the husband wasn't working, and they had to get on public assistance. And when you go to public assistance, they ask you, where is your baby's father? Or, where's the father of your children? And if you said that they were in the house, you didn't get any money. So you was forced now with your back up against the wall to lie. So in those demonstrations, you as a woman feel devastated because now you do have the man in the house, but he doesn't have a job, and then you have to lie to the HRA to say, in order for you to get food stamps or money, oh, I don't know where he's at. So I also want to say it also has to do with society as to how the structure is set up. you know it's a compound of devastation upon devastation upon devastation. So
One of the things that comes to mind, and when we look back at the onset of affirmative action, and you look at affirmative action was put in place in my mind, maybe not in anybody else's who put it in place, but in my mind was put in place to empower and support minority men in getting jobs. And what happened with that is that the women's movement basically took over affirmative action, and as a result of it, um, to their credit, black women were included in that, not to the numbers that white women were, but the whole intentionality around affirmative action then basically excluded minority men. So you had this quote unquote program that was supposed to be the equalizing factor. That didn't occur. And then, of course, you had all of the social economic issues that occurred around the war on crime and how they vilified and the new Jim Crow that as a result really bore to witness on black men. So there's been um, a downturn that we're looking to kind of create and to bring back. And I think one of the things that's important and one of the things that this group is talking about is also talking about having um, some Afrocentric relatedness, knowing where you come from,
Mhm.
understanding who you are, and that
Mhm.
you're not from slaves, but you are kings and queens from
Mhm.
the motherland that have just been displaced. And I think that that's
Mhm.
something that Bill, I think you do some of that work inside of the Father Center, and I think
Mhm.
Charles does as well in Milwaukee, and
Mhm.
you got and Byron as well. Would you guys like to speak to that a little bit?
I'd like to say something about that. We have a group that just started almost a year ago. It's called Sankofa Council of Elders, Sankofa Council, which is a think tank. And one of the things, our purpose is to bring into existence, into the Black community, our community, the African principles that we think can save us. Because as I say, jokingly to the group, the white man's medicine is not working for us. So we need to begin to look back. Like if you actually trace the concept of restorative justice, which is now becoming more and more popular, you can trace that all the way back to practices from the motherland, from Africa. I created a nonprofit organization called the Kalihari Peace Institute when I, back in 1991, discovered that the Sand Bushmen on the Kalahari have a conflict resolution, violence prevention process that you cannot improve on. And it's one of the oldest culture known to man. But they believe that the gods would be angry at them if they harbored unresolved conflict. So all conflict must be resolved as a community, and they won't stop the conversation, the discussions until it's resolved. And so I borrowed that concept and created the Kalihari Peace Institute. You know, the Sand Bushmen live on a desert. They don't have a body of water. They have to hunt and gather. They must work together. They have to have harmony, peace, and harmony for their own survival. And so I'm trying to find a way to bring that concept to my community so we could see that we do need each other. You know, our survival depends on our resolving conflict, peace, healing, and collaboration. If we had that, then there's no stopping us. And so that's the lane I'm running in right now.
I like that concept very, very much. I think that concept is very important to have. But now I want to ask realistically, in today's society with everything that's going on, do you all feel that we can achieve that? Because right now we're in a turmoil with not just with each other, but with all different cultures of so much prejudice. See, that's going on in the world, and we have been taken advantage of, and we are still being taken advantage of on a daily basis. So now we're not just talking about family. Now we just talking about our existence from day
Mm.
to day. How do you think that's going to pan out?
I just
Whichever
want to
one
say,
of you.
I think there's a lot of opportunity right now, and the pandemic, even just that we're on this virtually, and so much happens now virtually. And before, we wouldn't call a friend and talk to them virtually and have a glass of wine. We have to be at their house to do that, and then we have to drive. But now things are just much more accessible. We can be on calls with Africa, Europe, any place, Zoom calls, and be
Mm.
connected. But I also think that there's opportunity now in us owning our communities, like the Declaration of the Black Summit, really owning our communities, because like Charles says, the white man's medicine ain't going to work for us. If we continue to try to work in these systems and resolve things the way that they've been set up for us to not resolve them, then we got a problem. But there's opportunity here. And even in this group, there's just us sharing resources across the country is a big opportunity. But I think in this conversation, and this just occurred to me here, is that maybe we need to rethink what fatherhood is or what parenting is, and what are the qualities and how can they get provided, even if they're not provided by the primary people. How can we create those qualities within community? And I think that there's that possibility now. I really do. But I think we have to do that well.
I agree because it's necessary. It's about our survival. Like I never came home to an empty house. Growing up, my grandmother was there. She was always there. She opened the door. I didn't have a key to the house until I was like 18 years old, and I was ready to leave. But I had to knock. I'm serious. I had to knock on the door to get in. But there was always someone there. Children have key latch children for generation to generation now. As I said earlier, grandma and auntie, and sometimes even a neighbor was a big asset to the family, you know. And I still feel that it is not there, and it's getting worse.
Well, myself, if I could speak to that, I'm extremely optimistic. If I had to quote Dickens, I would say, these are the worst of times, but they're the best of times as well. The recognition by society in general as to the plight, or I won't use the word plight, but the situation of the Black family, and the racism and the barriers that Black people have to address is now being recognized with the Black Lives Matter movement, the recognition of the effects of mass incarceration, the rise up of the Fatherhood Initiative, and the trying to the reunification of the Black family. So I think we're on the threshold now of a new day. Things change slowly, but they're not as bad as they used to be. I mean, we look at the things around us now and we see how bad they are. But as Byron said, there's even good things happening in the pandemic. We are able to, I'm in New Jersey now, and connecting with people in Wisconsin and Chicago, New York, Los Angeles. These things have made it possible, and we're just in the beginning of that, the infancy of that. So I think we're on the verge of an explosion of Black pride and a growth and a strengthening of families in the Black community.
I agree with you 100%. Hold that thought. We'll be right back after this commercial.
Email from school about the incident today.
Scary.
Tell me about it. Did you have any idea that was going on?
None. I mean, you saw Derek at the game last night, too. Did you have a clue?
No, but teachers like me, parents, we don't always know as much as you guys do. Kids hear first about what's going on with other kids.
Half the time, it's rumors.
It can be hard to tell sometimes, but if you're ever concerned about a friend who's having trouble with alcohol, prescription drugs, bullying, violence, anything, you need to tell an adult. Mom or me, a teacher, coach, school counselor, someone you know and trust.
Dad, no kid is gonna tell an adult about that kind of stuff.
I get it, but if we don't know, we can't help. Speaking up about a problem, that's what helping a friend is all about.
COVID-19 has hit our community real hard.
We're dying from coronavirus at almost double the national rate.
If we come together, we have the power to save what matters to us, our Black lives.
There's power in protecting your loved ones.
There's power in wearing a mask and social distancing.
There's power in knowing the facts and using your voice.
Let's fight COVID-19. Visit bethepowerofus.org.
Stem is precise, no margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to load their minds. Dare to explore. Dare to STEM. Learn more at She Can STEM.
You made your house a reality. Homeschooling yourself on loans, color-coding listings, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. If you can ace house hunting, you can do it for retirement. Get on track with tips at aceyourretirement.org.
All right, we're back. Let's continue this wonderful conversation. Glenn, go ahead.
You know what I'd like to do at this point in time. I'd like to go hear from the gentleman in terms of what they're got in place currently, and then I think we'll wrap up in terms of what we want to do for May 22nd workshop. So, Bill, let's hear your closest. Your organization is how old? Tell us a little history about your organization and all the things that you do, the wonderful things that you're doing there.
Okay, as I said, our organization started in 1859 as an orphanage. We recently changed our name from Union Industrial House, UIH, Family Partners, and the UIH was, I learned the history of that. It was in the 1850s. There was a time when there was talk of secession. And so in Jersey, they wanted people to know that their home, their orphanage was associated with the Union and not the Confederacy. So therefore it was the Union, and it was the Industrial Revolution happening. So it became the Union Industrial Home for orphans. And it morphed into a couple of different purposes. And then it became a part of the Fatherhood Initiative about 25, 30 years ago. And the mission is to help men to become self-sufficient. And so we don't look at just one part of fatherhood. In other words, we don't sit down and tell men how to be good fathers. We do that, but we do a lot more than that. To be a good father, you have to be a good provider. So we have to have job development and job readiness. So we do a lot of work with that, teaching people how to interview, giving them the interview skills, doing a resume, a professional resume, so that they can get work. So that's a major part of it. We also have a program called 24/7 Dads. That's nationally recognized by the National Institute, Fatherhood Institute. 24/7 Dads is a program to help men become better men and to become better father and learn fathering skills. We also do anger management to address those issues that are affecting our men. And we address, as I said, the aspects of trauma. We have trauma. We hired a consultant, a trauma therapist, to come in and work with our men. And so that's always at the forefront. We also do training. We give men, most of our men that come to us have no skills. So they may have been incarcerated when they were young. They come to us. So we have a short-term credentialing program to give them skills and certifications that they can get right away, like small things like becoming a forklift driver or a security guard, okay? Working in the food service industry. We give them certifications, the OSHA, Occupational Safety and Health Administration. We give them those skills so that they're equipped to go out into the world. But what we also do is, as part of our wraparound case management program, is to sit down with each individual man and design a program for his success, because no one size fits all. So we ask them what their problems are. Every man's problem is different. Every man's parenting and fathering issues are different. Okay, so we have a number of workshops. For one that I do, it's called Family Reunification. So a person who has trying to reunite with the family, whether it's because he's coming out of incarceration, the military, or maybe he just wasn't there because he was immature and now he wants to reunite with his family, we teach him the skills and guide them on how to do that successfully. So all these programs, it's a myriad of programs that come together to serve the one man. So each man gets his own personal fathering program tailored for him. Okay, and it's also a self-determination. We're not there to tell them what to do. We're trying to give them the motivation and to help them do what they have to do. But the main thing I think that we do it from a non-judgmental perspective. Okay, we don't care what the reason was. If you want to be a father, we will help you achieve your desired ends. If I could say quick, I know this doesn't have a lot to do with what we're doing, but what Charles is trying to do with our healing circle is to bring those cultural things that originated in Africa that strengthens families there. We need to be able to bring that to our young men. I didn't have it. I did a lot of reading in college, Van Sertima and John Henry Clark and all of the great Black writers. But I learned most of what I did. I didn't travel internationally. I learned most of what I did from a white Irish Catholic missionary who went all over Africa. And he told me, I worked with him for 7 years, and he's the one told me the way things work in Africa.
Okay.
There is a continuity of culture across all of the nations of Africa that's similar, that binds the family together. For instance, he told me that, I remember the first thing he told me, that we were working with homeless people, and he told me that in Africa, in the village, there was no such thing as homelessness. No matter how poor the village was, at the end of the day, even the village idiot, and that's his words, went into someone's home. So they didn't have an issue with homelessness. There was one family, the village was a family. And so the concepts like this, I would sit down and talk to him. And I was amazed because I didn't know these things, you know. And some of the things that we do now, we don't realize it, but it comes from our African heritage. Mm-hmm. And what we want to do in that healing circle is to use from an Afrocentric point. We think that's going to hit home with our men more than the European type parenting structures and systems that we're used to dealing with.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Bill. Byron, you want to hear about what you're up to out in LA?
Yeah. Well, there's a few things. One is on Wednesday, I work in a program. I'm the project director for a program called Best Start West Athens. And Best Start is a program of First 5 LA or First 5 California, which was created out of the tobacco settlement. And the commitment is that all children be kindergarten ready. So they have funds to support these initiatives. And their goal is that all California will be kindergarten ready by 2028. So the Best Start program that I work in is focused around community change. And it's about working with the community in the way that they want to be worked with or need to be worked with to make that change. So we have forums every month. We have what we call local council meetings every month, and then we have a town hall meeting every quarter. So this particular Wednesday, we have a session called Engaging Men. because engaging men in California, like I said earlier, it has been challenging. And the idea of this program is to have the community residents, and even now that we're connected with Bill and Charles, making it a broader perspective. So Alan Michael, who's the moderator, used to be the director of Project Fatherhood, and he now works for the Good Foundation. And he's working on a systems and policy change with the Department of Family and Child Services and the community, how they can work together. And they have some great programs, Parenting and Partner program. And the other guy, Juan Solis, was from the Parent Partners program, people who've gone through DCFS and like what Bill does, get the support that they need to move on. Juan Solis was on drugs, him and his wife on drugs, strung out, their kids were taken away. And now, they've gotten through that and worked with the DCFS. And now he has a job as a male engagement coordinator, and he's changed some of the systems there. Men go into DCFS and they're terrified, and it's this whole environment where they don't see themselves. So he's gotten them to change the photos on the wall, to play videos that include men, to make it a more inclusive experience. And then there's James Rodriguez, who does the Fathers and Families Conference. And then there's Taryn, I always get his name wrong, Taryn, and he's working with the, I can't remember his project, but it's I think it's
Fathers Making Progress.
Fathers Making Progress. Great. And I just met him. And he's going to, all together, the forum is really about broadening this network. And if we can share services and work together, I do want to say that it's been quite a surprise just participating with Charles's group, because I think that, we all are men too. And we seem to, what I experience on that call is just an energy of us working together. And it's like fuel. But we all are very turned on about talking to each other. So providing men with the opportunity to engage about things that they want to engage about can be very, very powerful. And in this instance, we're working to support ourselves and the fathers and the men in community. So there's great possibility there for that. But this Wednesday, I'm hoping that we can make it a national, more people coming, and we can share these resources. So maybe people from California can utilize the services of Bill and some of the other folks on the panel. The other thing that I've worked on when I was doing a Project Fatherhood was I created this pledge campaign, and it's about fathers making pledges to their families on video, to their families and their children. So we'll share a series of them. I have about 40 some of them. We'll have a brief 2.5 minutes at the beginning of this session that we have. But ideally, we want to make this a campaign so that fatherhood is more of a cool thing, or it's like the ice bucket challenge, where people will pop up online on social media in those various platforms, like commercials in essence, but it'll be men declaring their commitment to their families. And hopefully it'll be a trending thing so people will want to get in, but it also is a record for the children and the fathers to remind themselves of what their commitment is. So I think we're really onto something here with Charles's group, because it's connecting, and with the International Black Summit and that declaration. Yeah. We stand for come on, Glenn, we stand for the ending the murders. Yes.
Of our men, women, and children.
Yes.
Yeah.
Supporting empowerment relationships, healthy relationships.
Yes. And that's the International Black Summit was actually created out of 2 women committed to working on black male female relationships, and now it's 30 years later, it's been all over the world, and it's a volunteer organization. So if something like that can happen, and I think we have connections across the world, it's a great network. And I think, like we've had in the past, and I think like white people think that the past is this great place, and there was some great things, but there was a lot of abuse in families and all this. So we can't romanticize that it was so great in the past. You know, there were a lot of ills as well. And we have this great opportunity to maybe recreate what parenting looks like and what's needed and how we can provide those support systems. So I would ask everyone on the call to help promote the event on Wednesday. Come to the event, and we can grow together. And I'm committed to being a part of Charles's group and us sharing those resources.
Okay.
Charles,
And maybe part of it could be parenting for the
Say it again.
parenting for the 21st century.
Yeah.
We'll add
All
that.
right.
Yeah.
That's something.
I like that concept that you're saying. Redesign parenting. Bring it up to date.
Updating it. Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
updating it.
That's great.
One question I wanted to ask you, gentlemen, because I know I used to run a parenting program, and the ladies used to get a certificate after 13 weeks of parenting skills, or they couldn't get back their kids. Are the gentlemen doing the same sort of thing? Do you all have a certificate after the gentlemen finish their education on training?
That's a great idea. I think
Oh.
that's something that we should do. Yeah.
Absolutely. We give a certificate in just about every workshop and every course. Our parenting men get a certificate. That's important that you do the recognition. And every year we have a event called Platinum Dads. That's hosted the Saturday before Father's Day. And we honor men from the community who have shown themselves to be good fathers or father figures. And so we honor them with trophies, and we also have the centerpiece is the legacy of fatherhood. And so that's for usually an older gentleman who has shown himself to be a father or a father figure over the years. So he gets a legacy of fatherhood award. But it's important to recognize men, and because even our little small certification workshops, once the men get certified, we have a ceremony, we have a graduation. Many of our men have never had that, and so it's very important to do that for recognition.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
Charles, we want to hear from you in terms of what you're doing now, and then, of course, we want to hear your vision for the healing circle, the empowerment, men's empowerment circle that you're designing for May 22nd.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to be, with these men who come together to create this fatherhood legacy virtual healing circle. And other than my fraternity, this is the only other place in the world where I have been intentionally working to support Black men. Because if we don't support ourselves, who's going to support us? And so one of the things that I've been doing, I'm working on an online course after the college that I work for shut down because of COVID-19. I decided, well, if I could teach for Springfield College, Milwaukee campus for 14 years, about 12 different subjects, I could create my own online course. And so the course that I created was focusing on the faith community to train people in the faith community and in other community-based organizations that have a peace mission to train facilitators to coach people who are dealing with co-parenting issues, and to have those churches serve their surrounding communities, to do healing circles and restorative circles, things that peacemakers would be doing, so that we don't have to rely on law enforcement or the courts. Because, like we said, that's not working too well for us. In fact, felony non-support is another form of the new Jim Crow that's kind of under the radar. But in most states, once you get behind in child support to a certain level, then you can be labeled a felon. And once you're labeled a felon, of course, based on the 13th Amendment, you're back into slavery. So what's possible? I mean, I see the possibilities are truly unlimited, but I think what we're doing with this effort, with this empowerment healing effort that we're doing right now, I think is going to expand. And kind of like back in the 70s when this Black is Beautiful campaign, it just came out of nowhere, and all of a sudden Black is beautiful. Or like the Black Lives Matter, movement. I think what's going to come out of what we're working on right now is a campaign for fatherhood presence. That's what I see coming, because there's so many wonderful people doing so many wonderful things, and what was missing was collaboration, or communication and collaboration. So now we're bringing communication, we're getting to know who we are as resources, and now we're beginning to collaborate in a way that people who participate in this process will walk away with something. They'll walk away with a vision. They'll walk away with the possibility of a legacy for their fatherhood, a legacy which won't be by default, but a legacy which will be based on their vision for who they are as a father. And also, for those situations where the fathers are absent, we can actually create community parenting, because the bottom line is our children need parenting in order to be socialized and to take advantage of the educational process. They need parenting first. And I like to read this Facebook message that someone sent to me. It says, Black men, to save your sons, you have to save their friends also, whose fathers are absent. And so I shared that. I put it on my website. Black men, to save your sons, you have to save their friends also, whose fathers are absent. And I think that's what. Yes.
Charles, we're just about to run out of time. Where can folks get a hold of you? So give us some information, and then Byron and Bill as well. Go ahead.
I have a website, www.fatherhood-presence.com. And my email is charlierob7@gmail.com. And there's no I in Charlie. charlierob7@gmail.com without the I in Charlie.
Great. Thank you. Byron? Dr.
Jones? You can go to the Girls Club of LA. It's girlsclubla.org is the website. And you can contact me through there, or you can contact me in my personal address, which is byronjohns821@gmail. And also you can go to Best Start West Athens. There's a Facebook page and a YouTube channel, and there's some resources there. I really like what they said about fatherhood parenting for the 21st century, and a campaign for father presence. Those are two things we can work on.
Great, thank you. Bill Davis?
Yes, you can reach us through our website, www.thefathercenter.org. My email is wdavis, WDAVIS, @thefathercenter.org. And if you go online on our website, you can connect to our Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and all of that.
Great, thank you. Back to you, Lady Pauline.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, for being on Our World, Our Power podcast. I enjoyed the conversation, And for the audience, please don't forget you can hear us on Spotify, iTunes, TuneIn, Google Play, and our local channel. And please don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. Glenn, how can people reach you?
They can reach me at Sutphin Boulevard Business Improvement District, 718-291-2110.
All
Thank
right. Well, you've been listening to Our World, Our Power, where your news reflects you and your community. Catch you all next week. Same time, same place.
Thank you so much.